What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Elijah back with another episode of Elijah Talks Ball Week 13 NFL recap coming to you fresh and hot, so get those ear holes ready. Tough day at the office for the San Francisco 49ers. An avalanche in the snowy place of America right now. Steelers pretty much end the season for the Bengals. Eagles dominate the Ravens, and plenty more. Kirk Cousins tough day as well, so stick through to the end. We're gonna give out game balls. Obviously we're gonna touch on Thanksgiving and Black Friday, but like and subscribe, comment down below, let me know, did your favorite team win? Mine didn't. We'll touch on it later. So let's jump on into it. We're gonna start Sunday Night Football, then America's Game of the Week, and then just down the time slot at the end, like I said, game balls. So stick through till the end. You won't want to miss what I have to say, I promise. All right, 35-10 was the final up in Orchard Park, New York. Buffalo, man, they moved to 10-2. You thought that you were going to get the Niners' best shot tonight with their backs against the wall. This isn't some team that has been flirting with the playoffs over the past few years and they're missing their window. This is a team that has gone to 2 Super Bowls in the past 5 years, 3 straight NFC championships. They have a ton of Pro Bowlers. They have a legit coaching staff. Just a well-run organization in general. Their backs are against the wall, 5-6. They haven't played good all season long. They needed to win this game, especially with Seattle moving on to 7-5. The Rams won today to get back to 6-6. Niners needed this one. And you figured, even though the elements were not in their favor, as you know, they play in Santa Clara, not exactly a nor'easter type of place, you figured it was balls to the wall. And there was one guy on that field that was giving it his all, and that was Fred freaking Warner. That guy could play for any team, any day of the week, any time of the year. He's a stud, and he was flying around the field. He's doing as much as he can. But man, something with this Niners team, they get the injury bug every few years, and it's brutal. I'll tell you, really, since Shanahan took over, is there a team that has worse injury luck than San Fran? Actually might dive into that, because it certainly feels like every time you think that they're going to turn the corner, they get hit with a big injury. I mean, a couple years ago when they played Philly in the NFC Championship, they were down to their 4th string quarterback, and then he got hurt. They had to play with CMC at QB, and obviously they lost. Just a tough night for the Niners. You wonder, has the door fully shut on this team? They just look old. They look slower. People will say, they've been playing more football every single year, so they're tired. But then again, the Chiefs have as well, and the Chiefs are, 11-1, 10-1? So you can't really use that excuse. The Patriots played more football for 20 straight years. So these guys have more advancements than ever in body recovery and nutrition to, help not hit a wall as hard or as fast. Just feels like this team might be a little bit old, and their scheme might be a little bit outdated. Their defense hasn't quite looked the same since D'Amico and Saleh left. Where do they move from here on out? Because I'll tell you one thing, Detroit's not going nowhere. Minnesota, Sam Darnold resurgent, but they also got J.J. McCarthy. That team is pretty stacked. The Green Bay Packers, you could argue they're going to be one of the best teams moving forward. The Eagles showed that they're here to stay. And in your own division, Geno Smith will probably be replaced with the younger quarterback. Mike McDonald seems like he's going to be a pretty good head coach. Kyler Murray seems like he's maturing. Obviously, Sean McVay, we know what he can do. You wonder what the next step is for the Niners. And I wouldn't fully count them out yet. They're 5-7, and yeah, they look like dog shit today. They're still a championship pedigree team, and you don't want to fully rule them out. But something that, they have been playing without this guy, so they can do it, and it certainly hurts that they have to. but I think it's just the mental strain and the mental blow that this is. Watching CMC go down about midway through the second quarter when he was really looking pretty good tonight, just felt like that completely deflated the 49ers. It deflated me as a fan. Now, I'm a huge Pats fan, but I don't like seeing guys go down, especially somebody like Christian McCaffrey, where you know he's got to be one of the hardest workers off the field at keeping his body ready to go. And everything that happened this offseason after the incredible year he had last year, just not being able to get on the field, really sucks to see. And you just feel like that kind of sums up the 49ers season. And you could, wouldn't say see it on their face, but you could tell in their play, they felt like the season was over once he went down. And I don't see how they get back. I wouldn't rule them out, but it's tough sledding because you got to battle the teams in your division, but then also the Commanders, the Buccaneers, and these are teams that they're hungry for a playoff spot. And, you know, they're not so much playing for the division title as they are for that 7 seed. So you're going to really have to fight. It is lucky you do have the tiebreaker with the Buccaneers, so that does help you a little bit. But you still got to catch up to the Commanders. And they're 2 full games ahead of you. So time's running out, man. We're already at week 13, so you felt like this could be the Niners' time to kind of plant the flag and say enough is enough and draw that line in the sand. But they get destroyed by Josh Allen, James Cook. I mean, can we give the ball to that guy more if I'm a Buffalo Bills fan? He is electric. 65-yard touchdown run. Just flying all around as fast as you could in the snow. Something became clearly apparent in this game as it went on, and it's that the Buffalo Bills need home field advantage. They just have one of the best home fields, probably them in Detroit, and they look as comfortable as anybody playing in any sort of element. I mean, that wind game, 50-mile-an-hour winds a few years back when the Patriots ran it like 48 times and threw it 3 times and they won. Josh Allen threw the ball like 30 times and he was dicing us up. Doesn't matter if it's snow, hail, rain, sleet, or 100 degrees. This Buffalo Bills team shows up to play, and that fan base fully embodies whatever element is currently railing them. They love it. And it's fun to watch, man. There's a few venues, maybe Lambeau is the only other one that you say, yeah, I want to watch a snow game at that stadium on Sunday night. Buffalo's definitely one of the best settings in football. I hope they keep that same like edginess when they open up their new stadium in a couple years. There's just something about that venue, kind of like the old Oakland Raiders stadium where it was like, yeah, you're just going to play in a place that's fucking hard to win. So they need the number 1 seed because this could be their year, man. The AFC doesn't look as tough. Certainly we thought it was going to be tougher than the NFC. It looks like the NFC, there's some teams in there that you're not going to want to face. The Bills already knocked off the Chiefs. They control their own destiny. They got the Patriots 2 to last 3 games. You know, they're only 1 game out of the first seed in the conference. This is their shot. So, you know, for Bills fans, hopefully you can pull it off. Outside of that, not much too left on the game. Like I said, get James Cook the ball more. He's electric, but kind of playing without some guys as well tonight. Excited to see this team get healthy. Next up, America's Game of the Week, Eagles and the Ravens. And for, I'll say, the first 20 minutes of this game, really thought that the Ravens were going to just pounce on another NFC team and move that record Lamar has against the NFC and put another notch in the win column. I think it would be 24-1 if they would have won today, but they didn't because the Philadelphia Eagles, man, they just keep putting it together. And they're on an 8-game winning streak now. feels like a whole year ago that debacle down in Cleveland went down, where people were saying Nick Sirianni, just get him out of the building. They don't want him here. And then they rattle off 7 straight wins from that game, and they've looked damn good. Knocked off some really good teams in the process. And it's a tough feat for an NFC team, especially you got to come into Baltimore, play a Ravens team that, I wouldn't say their backs are against the wall, but they don't need any motivation. They know they got to win these games, especially with the Steelers winning today. They needed to win this game. And Lamar's just been dominant against teams that haven't played him. And they contained him really well. And I know we always talk about Lamar Jackson in big games like, well, he puts up good numbers. You could put up all the good numbers you want. And we'll talk about this with Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr. You can light it up all game. But it really doesn't matter unless you make the clutch key plays that you need to. This is the argument with Patrick Mahomes. It's like, yeah, well, he's been looking like shit all game, but he does make those clutch plays. Lamar just doesn't, man. Whether it's just misses the open receiver or takes a sack or just can't scramble out quick enough, you just feel like this Raven team, it gets tight in big games. And tonight was a huge game against a great team, and they dominated them. The Ravens continually go away from their identity in every big game. I mean, you've got one of the best running backs in the league and the best running threat quarterback we've ever seen. And you have like 11 carries to Derrick Henry pretty much the whole way through the third quarter. And the Eagles didn't do Saquon any favors in the beginning of the game as well. What is with that, guys? You got the 2 best running backs in the league. Run the freaking ball. Is it really that hard? If we can tell on the couch, why can't you do it in the game? I watch the Patriots every week stay committed to a run game that gets them 2 yards here, 3 yards there, and then a -4. And they still trudge along and hand the ball off and hit some play action off of it. Like, just run the ball. You got 2 of the best players in the league, especially at their respective positions. And the Ravens just go away from that in every big game, and it always bites them in the ass. So moving forward, can't take this team seriously, even though I do believe, similar to Alabama, I know we're moving across sport categories right now. Alabama's got the highest potential. They could beat anybody. I feel that same way with the Ravens. But sometimes you're just like, yeah, well, they could also lose to the Raiders. Or they can get beat by the Browns. It's just, I don't like the inconsistency, especially in big games. At least Alabama gets up big games. The Ravens feel like, 2 out of every 3 big games, they lay an egg. And tonight was another one. Another thing with the Ravens, what's up with Justin Tucker? He is, we all know, the greatest kicker of all time. And this is a year from hell for the kicking people. But man, tough year for Justin Tucker. Misses 2 huge field goals and an extra point. You feel for the guy. He's done so much for that city when it comes to hitting game winners and game tires. I mean, he's been the clutchest kicker we've ever seen. Him and Vinatieri are 1A, 1B. But he is struggling this year. You got to get right, because this game probably looks a lot different if he makes those 2 field goals. But he didn't. And then with Philly, we talked about it a little bit. This team is special, man. Coming into the season, we thought, well, they got the most talent in the league with Jalen, with Saquon, with a great offensive line. You got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. You trade for Jahan Dotson, who, even though he hasn't been great, still a first-round pick just a couple years ago. And then on defense, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat. I mean, Zach Bond has come on, but at corner, you got Darius Slay, Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, your 2 draft picks, CJ GJ. I mean, really, this team is freaking loaded. So, they're finally seeing that potential. I mean, what is it? 11-2 now? 10-2? I think it's 11-2. I mean, damn, this team is rolling. So look out, Detroit. This team might be headed your way with some mean intentions. Next up, moving back to the 1 o'clock games, we're going to hit the Steelers and Bengals. And if you would have said the final score of this is 44-38, what division was this game played in? You would have never guessed the AFC North. Probably one of the higher score totals in an AFC North matchup ever. Starts off with the Bengals' first touchdown being a pick six. Will the Steelers get them back later in the game with a scoop and score? And just kind of more back and forth until the Steelers finally pulled away with said scoop and score. Crushing loss for the Bengals probably is the one that does them in, as they're now 4-8. They'd have to go on a 5-game win streak, which we laid it out. We'll talk about it in a second. But the Steelers, Russell Wilson, career day, over 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. The one pick he did have, receiver kind of fell down, so you can't really put him on that too much. Najee Harris, contract year technically, has been looking really good. I guess he looks a little bit more spry. I did look up his stats over the past few years, and it's about the same every year. So, we talked about Najee Harris kind of falling off, but the numbers look about the same every single year. He's eclipsed 1,000 yards, been good receiving threat, but he's being consistent. He's playing good. George Pickens is a beast. What's new here? Just a solid football team. Really, that's as honest as a critique as I could say. So just a good football team that you feel confident is going to give you their best effort in big games. I don't have the question that I do about the Ravens when the Steelers make it to the playoffs. This team is going to show up. Do they have the guns to get it done? That's a different story. But they definitely don't shy down from big moments. And they end their rival season pretty much here. The Steelers' next 5 games, because this is going to be crucial. They're 2 games over the Ravens right now. They have one of the tiebreakers. They do have to play them coming up, but they got the Browns, maybe a little bit of revenge. They still have to play the Eagles. That's a tough game. The Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Bengals. It's a tough sled right there. It's a good thing the Steelers are 9-3, because they're going to be tested upcoming these next few weeks, really the rest of the season. Can you go 3-2? If you went 3-2, you're 12-5. You probably wrap up the division. Even if you went 2-3, one of those has got to be the Ravens to make sure you stay with that tiebreaker. It's gonna be tough sledding, but listen, like I said, this team doesn't shy away from a challenge, and they got a challenge coming up. Bengals, on the other hand, boy, talk about unlucky. They just can't get the fucking ball to bounce their way this season. They need to go on a 5-game winning streak to have a chance, to even have a chance to make it to the playoffs. But good news, they play the Cowboys and the Titans and the Browns next. They end their season with the Steelers, and then in between those final 3 games, you got the Broncos. And as we know, the Broncos have the 7 seed right now. So this would be huge if the Bengals could go on a 5-game run. They could shorten that gap with the Broncos and then own that tiebreaker. So there's still a path. There still is a path, but the team just don't know what's going on, man. The offense, 38 points, 35, 34, 40. Like, they've been putting up big-ass numbers. That defense is leaking like the Titanic. So, like I've been saying, if they can go on a run and get in the playoffs, look out. They'll probably go all the way with the momentum they'd be carrying. But that wiggle room is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So, what can you do? Moving on, Chargers and Falcons. Let me sip my coconut water. Oh, that's delicious. Not a plug. Just love coconut water. Chargers, Falcons. Chargers win a snoozer 17-13. And don't look now. The Falcons might be putting Michael Penix in at quarterback to save their season because Kirk Cousins, 4 interceptions, including a pick 6. Fucking brutal. Because really, they had this game in the wraps. Chargers couldn't do jack squat on offense. Only 187 total yards, 10 points. I mean, the Falcons defense knew what was up. Another 5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. And this Falcons defense, they showed up to play. What makes you wonder with the Chargers, does losing J.K. Dobbins just really throw a wrench in this entire engine? They want their identity to be on the ground, and J.K. Dobbins was having an incredible year, but now they're down to Kamani Vidal, one of their draft picks this year, and then Gus Edwards, which a better 2 than 1. And they were already limited at the wide receiver position and tight end position, so, do they have the guns? They have the coaching, they have the quarterback, they have a great offensive line. It's a team game. This isn't basketball where you put LeBron James on the court and you could have 4 Elijahs running around at the other positions and you still make the playoffs. Football, you gotta have studs at every spot to be taken seriously as a Super Bowl contender, and then just good guys and good depth all around to make the playoffs. And it feels like the Chargers are a year or 2 away, but regardless, they win this game. And that's what good teams do. It really feels like the Falcons won this game, but somehow the Chargers snuck it out. And that kind of brings the conversation back to Kirk Cousins. There was a reason they took Michael Penix, because they didn't want, when Kirk was done playing here, for them to be in the situation that they were going into the offseason where, they don't have a quarterback. But we thought that this issue would arise if Kirk Cousins doesn't play well. Who's the locker room going to identify with more? Who's younger with a more favorable contract? And who gives you a better chance to win? Who's to say that it's not Michael Penix? And I'm not acting like you should just bench Kirk Cousins because of one bad game. He's had some games where he's looked very pedestrian this year. And quite frankly, he's had more of those games than he's had good games. And we saw it with Aaron Rodgers and the Achilles. Kirk Cousins, same thing. These guys are just older, man. I think we're going to learn that Tom Brady was an anomaly that we won't see again. It's those few feats in sports lore that get completed. Tom Brady is one of those. We're not going to see a guy at 45 still leading the league in passing, winning a Super Bowl when he goes to his new team because the other one thinks, well, shit, Father Time's undefeated. It's got to be near that. I mean, a couple weeks ago we saw Mike Tyson. We thought he still had it, got in the ring. Looked like a cat getting sprayed with water. Father Time is undefeated, and maybe that's the case with Kirk Cousins. And you're 6-6 now. The Bucs win today. They're 6-6 as well. I think the Bucs are the better team, but they've got their own issues. Luckily, the Falcons, you do have the tiebreaker. I mean, how far do you got to go to win? And if you're seeing stuff out of Michael Penix that says, he looks better in practice, you got to put him in. The Panthers did it with Andy Dalton earlier this year, benching Bryce Young. The Raiders did it with Gardner Minshew and played Aiden O'Connell. It doesn't really matter whether or not, you feel like Aiden O'Connell is going to be the guy or Andy Dalton is going to reboot your franchise. If you think they're going to win more games and give you the best chance to win, you got to put them in. And at what point do you believe Kirk Cousins is not your best QB on the roster? So sometimes you got to put money aside, and it's tough. We saw it with Deshaun Watson. It's tough to ignore how much money a player makes, but it's also tough to ignore how many games you lose because of the guy pulling the trigger. So we'll watch that development because it's going to get loud this week. That's for damn sure. Next up, we got the Texans and the Jags. Texans win this game, and I picked up the Texans defense a couple weeks ago. Gonna be dropping them because they let up 20 points to the Jaguars. But at one point, it was 23-6, and you're like, oh yeah. Yeah, that's about right. And then you look up in the fourth quarter with a couple minutes left, it's 23-20. And the Jaguars have a chance to get the ball back. You're like, what the hell is going on? You cash in, you see that Mac Jones, because Trevor Lawrence, took a gnarly hit. Hope he's okay. Glad to see he was up and moving. Jag fans throwing trash at Al-Aziz Al-Shahir. I don't know how you say his last name. He's probably the only one that knows how as well. But, man, he was getting shitted on. And, it's a pretty dirty hit. It's always tough. I'm kind of in the middle where, these quarterbacks, they can run for 20 yards and then decide to slide at the last second before a guy launches. And then it's like, oh, it's a penalty. And it's like, but then if they fake slide and keep running, like, what do you want me to do? You can't just scale the sideline. How many times we see Mahomes just tiptoe down the sideline for 20 yards? And it's like, and then I ease up to not destroy him. And then he keeps running for another 15 because I thought he was going to go out of bounds. So it's a little bit of a gray area. This one looked a little bit more blatant, but either way, brawl ensued. This was a brawl weekend, baby. Lots of fights going on in the football world, but Mac Jones comes in, leads them on an 84 and a 74-yard scoring drive, TD with a 2-point conversion in there, gets it to a 3-point game. And, they were within a stop of probably winning because they had all that momentum, but Joe Mixon continues to have one of the more quietly impressive season. Another running back that relocated this year. He now has the NFL record. This is kind of a fun stat. 6 straight road games with 100 or more rushing yards and 1 or more rushing TDs. Kind of fascinating. But yeah, man. Something's off with this Texans team. And we've been talking about it. And I don't know how much more we got to talk about it. They are 8-5, so take it with a grain of salt. But at this point right now, are you telling me if the Texans play the Ravens in the wild card round, or the Chargers, or even the Broncos, are we saying that the Texans are locked to go on to the next round? I definitely don't think so. CJ Stroud is clearly having a sophomore slump. This defense has stretches of being elite, and then stretches of being incompetent, as we saw at the end of this game. I wouldn't say it's a flash in the pan, but winning back-to-back seasons just to make the playoffs is tough, man. We take it for granted with teams like the Bills, the Chiefs, the Pats from back in the days, the Packers. They've been a steady franchise that makes the playoffs. Those are the outliers. This isn't an easy thing to do. Look at the Chargers and the Bengals. They got 2 of the best 5 QBs in the league, and they're hit or miss whether they'll make the playoffs or not year in and year out. It's just a tough thing to do. So maybe the Texans are getting a little bit of taste of that. Last year, they were the up-and-comers. This year, they're the hunted. People are looking at them saying, they're a good team, we got to give it our all. Last year was kind of the opposite. They looked at the team and said, they don't know, but they're going to find out. So, just kind of got to monitor that as close as you need to. They'll probably make the playoffs. Well, they will make the playoffs. But will they do anything? They won a game last year against the Browns. So you feel like if they get bounced in a wild card round, it is a letdown. I wouldn't call it that because you still are set up for success in the future. But you just want to see a little bit more out of this team. Next up, Cardinals and Vikings. And for most of the evening, for the most of the afternoon, I definitely thought the Cardinals were going to win this game, but the Vikings come back in the fourth quarter, come from behind, win. That's huge for a Vikings team that in the beginning of the year, we saw them dominating teams, playing from a lead and suffocating them with man-to-man and creative blitz packages from Brian Flores on defense. But you weren't seeing a lot of close victories. And as the season goes on and you get into the playoffs, you're going to have to win these tight games. So you better get comfortable. And you're going to have to, figure out a way to come back from a deficit. It's just going to happen. Every player in this league drives a nice car. These guys are good, man. These coaches are at the NFL level for a reason. And when you get to the playoffs, it's the best of the best. So you better be comfortable playing in a game that you're uncomfortable. So coming back and winning today was a huge against the Cardinals, which, they're playing for first place. It's not like this team is, fucking fondling themselves in a field somewhere. They're a legit contender right now, which hurts them. And it does feel like the Cardinals are just a year away. They have some nice pieces, man. Paris Johnson Jr., their left tackle, he's coming along. Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson at the receiver position. Trey McBride. He's been the best tight end. Him and Brock Bowers. I've said it multiple times. The two best tight ends right now in the NFL. And then James Conner, you just extend him. You got a couple pieces on defense that are coming along. You're going to have some more cap space. Kyler Murray seems like he's starting to mature a little bit more. So you feel good about that moving forward. And Jonathan Gannon seems like he's more than a competent head coach, especially, getting your team in position. They possibly could make the playoffs by winning the division with one of the, if not, well, let's be honest, the least talented roster in that division. So you got to tip your hat to coaching, but this Vikings team is just better, and you expect them to win this game, and they come back and do it. Now, the real question is, how far can Minnesota go in the playoffs? And yeah, that's a curious one. I'll tell you one thing. If they are a wild card, you won't want to face them in the first round. You're telling me if the Bucs or the Falcons win their division and they make it to the playoffs, you're telling me they're going to want to face the Minnesota Vikings? Yeah, fuck no. They'll probably get throttled if that's the case. So you feel like at least one game that they'll win in the playoffs as of right now. Don't look now. They're 10-2. That's a damn good record. That's a number one seed. A lot of years. And definitely division title. A lot of years. But you're just dealing with the 11-1 Lions ahead of you. Somehow. In what world did we say 2024 the Vikings are going to be 10-2 with Sam Darnold at quarterback, but they're going to be a wild card because Jared Goff and the Lions are going to be 11-1? What? You gotta love the parody. Moving on, we got Colts and the Pats. Oh. Draw me a bath and throw in a toaster. This was a fucking brutal loss. It put me in a funk for a little bit. I think my girlfriend was slightly affected. My dogs too. Didn't take it out on them. I took it out on my couch cushion. It's frustrating. But overall, you like what you saw out of the Patriots in this game. Drake May, every single week, has really started to put it together. I would say this was his best game. He looked in command. He never once looked overwhelmed, which really he hasn't looked overwhelmed all season long. I'd say probably the first drive against the Texans and last week a little bit against the Dolphins because he was getting pressured every snap. He looked very good today. Very, very, very good today. The penalties, we got to figure that out. I feel like Drake May's getting multiple first downs on each series just to overcome penalties. We had two touchdowns wiped off the board due to penalties. A fluky interception, as you know, it was so frustrating. We had a beautiful drive all the way down the field, and just to have a ball kind of carry him off of a hand, off a knee, off an elbow, and then kind of off the defender's knee, and it's in the end zone. One of those annoying plays where you say, "Oh my gosh, why has it got to be our team?" And then obviously they get the ball back off of a Christian Gonzalez interception. Great play by Gonzo. But then you go 3 and out, 3 plays, -2 yards. Tough sequence right there. You punt the ball back, and then you never get it back until 10 seconds to go with a 1-point deficit. 19 plays, 80 yards. That was the Colts' final drive. Hats off to them, man. It's not like they just drove right down the field. And Anthony Richardson was throwing some dots on that drive that his guys couldn't make. And there's a couple great plays by the Patriots defense. But I mean, that's 4 yards of play. It's pretty damn good as a defense. It just kind of sucks, man. They just made the 2 plays that you couldn't have them make. But we had a chance to kick a game winner, 68 yards. Comes up just short. And ultimately, this was the best result the Pats could ask for, is that you're in these close games, but you barely lose them, so you improve your draft position. You do want to see this team stack a couple wins for their confidence, have Drake May get a couple wins under his belt. Let this team learn how to win. And this was a winnable game, and it hurts that you lost it. Now you got a bye week, rest up, get back to it. Play the Cardinals, then you got the Bills, Chargers, Bills. So you finish off the season against 4 potential playoff teams. Or 3 potential playoff teams. I mean, 1 for sure after tonight, since they clinched the division, the Bills did. The Colts keep their season alive. They're now 5-7. Or no, 6-7. They're 6-7 now. They got a shit ton of weapons on offense. Good offensive line. Then you got Jonathan Taylor at running back, and you got A.D. Mitchell, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and Anthony Richardson. And watching these 2 quarterbacks play, clearly Drake May is going to be the better player. It's not even close. He's just the better quarterback. And it looks way more natural, and he can run as well. What the Colts need to do, though, is they need to have this offense be run just like Steichen ran it in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts. This isn't going to be a drop back and throw it around 35 to 40 times. It's not even going to be a 25 to 30 times. We want to have him have 10 carries, Jonathan Taylor have at least 20, and we'll throw 15 to 20 times. Like, that's what they want to do. And if they can master that, there'll be an issue. Their season stays alive. Patriots move to 3-9. Or 3-10. I'm all over it, man. Week 13 with all these bye weeks, the shit gets confusing. So don't roast me in the comments. Patriots stink. Colts are alive. That's the fucking bottom line. Seahawks, Jets. This was a satisfying one for a Pats fan, as I did pick the Jets coming last this offseason. And so far, they are circle jerking the Patriots for that position right now. I'll tell you what, there's been some losses that were on the Jets defense, and there's been some that were on the Jets special teams. This one was on Aaron Rodgers. Missed multiple receivers in the end zone, had a terrible pick 6 to a defensive lineman who actually set the record for the longest interception return for a touchdown by a 300-pound man or more. Shout out Leonard Williams. Aaron Rodgers is incapable of pushing the ball down the field. You're seeing teams drop out underneath that slant route. They're giving them the outside saying, yeah, if you're going to beat us over the shoulder, you're going to beat us over the shoulder. We don't think you can. And he hasn't been able to. Read an article today saying that Aaron Rodgers is a long shot to come back to the Jets. You got to feel like it's mutual on both sides. Even though Aaron did come out and say he likes it in New York. He could be being politically correct. Or he could just realize that who else is going to fucking sign him after this year? Probably nobody. So Jets might be his only option. Jets' nightmare season continues. And you damn believe that they'll be back in the market for a quarterback this offseason, as well as coach and GM. Seahawks, 3 in a row now. 7-5, solely in first place of the NFC West. Started 3-0. Then went, 1-5, and then, or 2-5, and now they're 3-0 again, something like that. They've been very good over the past 3 weeks. The defense, pretty solid. You know, I know they let up 21 points, but 2 of those were because they fumbled it with like in the red zone of the Jets. So basically, you know, a couple of good plays and you're in the end zone. They locked up in the second half. Geno did have one of his famous 4th down sacks. You got to eliminate those. But right now, you're in the driver's seat to win this division, and it's kind of a down year. This is another team. Seahawks, Falcons. They play the Packers or the Vikings in the first round. They're cooked. I'm sorry. Don't hate me. Hate your squad. Next up, final 1 o'clock game. Titans and Commanders. Commanders in full command against the Titans. They're probably called the Lucens now because 42-18. That was the final score. Jaden Daniels gets back on the board with 4 total touchdowns. I mean, he looked in command. Seems like his rib getting a little bit healthier. You know, they had lost 3 in a row after starting 7-2. And a couple heartbreakers at that. But Dan Quinn, man, this guy's a legit coach. He's a culture setter. He knows what the fuck he's doing. He's got this team at 8-5. Exciting news as well. They might be moving on from the name Commanders and embracing their old colors and old logo. Oh, there's not many things that I wish for in this life besides my health and my family's health. One of those things outside of that would be that the Commanders changed their name back to the Redskins. I fucking hate the Commanders name, and I've hated it ever since the first syllable of that name was pronounced and it went into my ear canal. I couldn't stand it, still can't stand it. Praying that they bring back the Redskins. I'll be a fan again. And listen, NFL, the bottom line, they're about money and how much cha-ching is being brought in. They go back to the Redskins. Holy shit, people will flood the NFL shop site for Washington Redskins gear. Next up, well, not next up, just on the other side of the ball, Tennessee. You know, not much really to talk about. Just keep evaluating. You know, you're in a similar boat to the Patriots, the Giants, the Jaguars. Your season's over. What players are going to be on your squad next year? And, you know, what players are you going to want to extend come the offseason? And that's pretty much it. Obviously, the quarterback, Will Levis. You've liked some things you've seen out of him. Just hope that he can keep building on that. Do you really want to spend a first-round pick on a quarterback this year? Probably not. Especially with next year. Nico Iamaleava out of Tennessee, being eligible to come play in the pros. Tennessee. That'd be kind of sweet. So just keep figuring out what you got at the quarterback position. On to the 4 o'clock games. 2 more. Stick with me. Rams and the Saints. I got written down here. Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins. What's the difference? Nothing. Great stats. Terrible game decisions when the game matters. And I butchered that sentence, but you get what I'm saying. These guys can put up hollow numbers with the best of them, and they'll bring your team back to within a field goal, but it'll be with a minute and a half left, and the onside kick doesn't get recovered, so it doesn't really matter. You know, Derek Carr just 4th down, fumbles the ball, game over, and it just feels like both these guys, they'll keep you competitive, but you can't take them seriously. And the Saints are in that category. I will say, Darren Rizzi, the interim head coach, done a fucking great job keeping this team competitive. I mean, they almost did beat the Rams, and they were taking it to them for a little bit. The score wasn't anything reflective of that, but the physicality, you were like, oh, Saints aren't messing around. The Rams, they're still fighting for a playoff spot, so this was a big win, getting back to 6-6. You know, I would say in that division, unless the Niners are healthy, this is probably the most talented team. Certainly for the future, feels like they've got kind of the best roster moving forward. They do have some question marks with Stafford and Cup, but you like the young coach, you like the young pieces on defense. Just got to keep building in the draft. I felt better about them last year. Something still seems a little bit off with them this year, but hey, listen, they're clearly a feisty team. Maybe they could do some damage if they get in. Finally, with this game, I saw a sign in the crowd that said, "Still mad, can't get over it. The NOLA no call." And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, back in 2018, when the Rams went to the Super Bowl to play the New England Patriots and got thoroughly embarrassed, there was a play, a massive play. The Saints were down by the end zone. This was an NFC Championship game. I think it was second or third down with, I think it was Brandon Cooks. Somebody was running out to the flat, and I think it was Nickel Roby-Coleman was the cornerback for the Rams, and got there like a full second early and just completely destroyed the receiver. And it would have been a first down, obviously. It was the easiest pass interference call you'll ever have in your entire life. And it would have put them pretty much right at the goal line. And the refs just didn't call it. They're like, no, that's not a penalty. And it was like, it was a moment of disgust, then shock, then bigger disgust. It's like, how do you miss that call? Saints go on to lose that game. They had chances to win it, so they can complain all they want. They would have lost to the Patriots anyway, but definitely was when that Saints team was humming. So that one hurts, but just revisiting that, how do you fuck up that call? Finally, we got the Bucs and the Panthers, an overtime thriller. Don't look now, man. The Panthers, they are not an easy out. The Bucs found that out the hard way, even though they pulled it off. I wouldn't call it a lucky fumble, but definitely a little dust of a little mix of fairy dust sprinkled over your season by the football gods for the Buccaneers getting that fumble to break their way and then going down and kicking the game-winning field goal. Bryce Young, looking good, man. Ever since coming back from that benching. Maybe that's what the new trend is going to be. If the quarterback seems a little over his head, sit him down for a few weeks, let him catch his breath, watch a veteran do it, and then come back in and show us what you're all about. Because Bryce Young has been very impressive, and it's nice to see because there's not many players that I've felt worse for in my life than Bryce Young and how bad he was last year. And then the first two games, you're just like, man, this dude seems like a good guy. You just want to see him succeed, and he's starting to find that now. Todd Bowles, I think it might be time for the Bucs to move on from him after this year. It's never a good sign when you're the defensive-minded head coach and your defense stinks. There's a lot of games this year where they've given up 30 points, high 20s, 40s, high 20s, 30s. I mean, they just let the Carolina Panthers walk down the field to tie the game, and they were walking down the field to win the game until they fumbled the ball. If you're going to be a defensive head coach and have a revolving door of offensive coordinators, you better be damn good on defense. And this team just ain't good on defense, so maybe look for them to join the coaching carousel this offseason. Before we hit on game balls, just going to touch on the Thursday games and the Friday game. Chiefs, man, their luck just continues. Aiden O'Connell, Jackson Powers, Johnson, just shitty timing. Really nobody's fault, just a miscommunication. Raiders were about to win that game. Botch snap. Game over. 12 seconds left. Just a brutal way to lose. Lions win, but lose another defender. Malcolm Rodriguez goes out for the year with a torn ACL. I mean, Lions, they're guys on defense. Aiden Hutchinson, Rodriguez, Alex Anzalone, they're just dropping like flies. How many more injuries can they sustain before, eventually you just don't have enough to get over the edge? Hopefully that's not the case, but definitely hurts. The Cowboys, they won the Turkey Nap Bowl. Good for them. Bears fired Eberflus after that Lions game. That final sequence, if you haven't seen it, go look it up. I won't dive into it, but just an egregious sequence of events with how they missed the open receiver, and that's on Caleb. But then penalty, sack, can't get lined up in time, didn't call timeout to bail out your young QB, even though they should have been fine without calling a timeout to save it for a field goal. Just kind of reflective that this team doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, and that reflects directly at the head coach. So they fire him. And then the Dolphins. Them boys look cold, as Josh Jacobs said. I thought they were going to win that game. I really did. And it felt like they had a good shot until they dropped the punt after their first defensive stop, which was a great sign. Then they dropped the punt, down 7-0. And after that, it's just you're back in your head. And they couldn't break away. This offense wasn't built for the cold. And they don't need to be built for the cold because they play in Miami. But when you don't win your division and you got to go on the road to these cold places in must-win games, it's not going to be in your favor. And it wasn't the other night. All right, game balls. And then we're headed out of here. 51 minutes and 16 seconds. Not bad. I could kind of bullshit about football for a while. I'm impressed. Game balls, offense, defense, and head coach Russell Wilson is my offensive player of the week. Game ball to you, sir. 414 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kind of a bullshit pick, you would say. Receiver fell down. Can't really count that against him, but 76% completion percentage. Just a damn good day for Russell Wilson. He looked really good, man. So hats off to Russell Wilson. What is he, 5-1 now since taking over the Pittsburgh Steelers at the quarterback position? Shout out, Russell. Defense. Dug deep for this one. You aren't going to know who it is unless you're a sicko like me. Tarheeb Still, cornerback for the Los Angeles Chargers. 2 interceptions, 3 pass deflections, and a touchdown was pretty much the reason they won this game against the Falcons. Damn. Good for this guy. He has earned some more playing time. It's cool when you see a big name like Patrick Surtain or Derek Stingley Jr., Ed Reed back in the day, make these big plays. You're like, yeah, that's why they make all the money. But it also is cool when you see these no-name guys like Tarheeb Steele or Deron Bland last year. It's like, damn, who's this guy? Make a name for himself. So good job, Tarheeb. And for coach, even though we don't know what he does, his team is now bidding for first place in the NFC, and they thoroughly dominate the Rams last week, the Ravens this week, and probably every team moving forward until they meet the Lions. Nick Sirianni, good job, dude. You got your team playing the best ball at the right time. You know, they clown on Nick Sirianni a lot. I like him. I really do. We don't know what he does, but listen, doesn't matter. He does a damn good enough job. He's gotten to a Super Bowl and he made the playoffs every year. He's been with that team. So he's doing something right, and they're going to make the playoffs again and possibly, even the Super Bowl. So Nick Sirianni going into Baltimore. Big time game, America's game of the week, 2 best teams in the league. And they said, yeah, one of the best teams in the league because we're going to destroy the other one. Even though it was 24-19, the score was not reflective of that. The Eagles showed a different level of physicality than the Ravens, and they've been doing that all season. So that's the recap, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe. Stick around for more content. We're going to be breaking down a bracket for the college football playoff because madness has ensued. Crazy weekend. Epic college football season. Listen to what I have for my bracket. It's pretty well thought out. I know there's going to be some haters because of who's in, who's out, whatever. Check it out, and then we'll have the official one coming out Tuesday, so I'll get that one out Tuesday morning so we can kind of compare and contrast. Outside of that, guys, stay safe. Enjoy your work week. Don't forget, this is the best channel to listen about football. Didn't have anything else to say. Couldn't think of anything, but anyways, peace out.